The New York Jets 2025 NFL draft class is complete, and whether you like it or not, certain draft picks have sent clear messages to select players on the Jets roster. Who are those players? We'll talk about that and much more, all coming up here on a Friday edition of NY Flight Jets Talk, joined by our guy Justin Freed from thejetpress.com. All of that and much more right here, right now on NY Flight Jets Talk. Let's do it.
J-E-T-S, Jets, let's go.
Jets wide receiver Wesley Walker. Wesley, how you doing today? ESPN writer, Mr. Rich Cimini, Jets reporter for The Athletic, Mr. Zach Rosenblatt, Hall of Famer, and Jets legend, Mr. Marty Lyons.
Your host, Connor Law.
What is going on, everyone? Hello and welcome back here into another edition of NY Flight Jets Talk. Appreciate you all tuning in to the show here on this Friday, May 2nd, 2025. Make sure you all smash that like button and hit subscribe. It's completely free and it helps us grow significantly. Like, share, and subscribe. That is free and it helps us grow significantly. What's not free, but it helps us grow just as much, you can get into our membership raffle. New prize is coming, but at the end of today's show, if you gifted a membership or $2.99 super chat, you got entered. We're giving away some prizes on today's show. At the end of the show, those prizes are Don Maynard signed photo, Joe Klecko signed helmet, Joe Namath Super Bowl III replica ring, a CJ Mosley signed jersey, a free item from our merch store, channel emoji. That's what we're giving away at the end of the show. But starting today, you can get into May's membership raffle. Every $2.99 super chat or gifted membership will get you an entry. Great way to support the show. The more entries you have, higher chance you have to win. And we have some heavy-hitting prizes this month. The grand prize being a Sauce Gardner signed jersey, a Kevin Mawai signed mini helmet with a Hall of Fame inscription, an Aaron Glenn signed trading card, a Jonathan Vilma signed photo, a Bart Scott signed photo, a free item from our merch store, and a channel emoji. Every $2.99 super chat or gifted membership will get you an entry. Appreciate your support. As always, throw your questions in the chat. Call into the show with the pinned comment. I've been wasting too much time. Let's bring on our guest for today's show. The one, the only, Justin Freed from the Jet Press, kind enough to grace us with his presence here on the program. Justin, drafts in the books. Do you get any sleep these past few weeks?
I've caught up a little bit the last few days. It was rough for a few days, but this is the post-draft time. This is the time where not a lot going on in the NFL season. We can catch up on our sleep a little bit and maybe talk a little undrafted free agents, stuff like that.
Undoubtedly so. And, you and I, we've pretty much seen eye to eye on a lot of topics with the Jets, but especially with the UDFA market. So we'll get into that in a little, but I want to touch on an article you wrote a few days ago for thejetpress.com. And you kind of reviewed the Jets 2025 draft class, and you revealed 5 players you believe the Jets sent a strong message to, given their selections throughout the draft. Who are those 5 players, and how does that affect the Jets' stance on the roster? How does that affect their stance, how they will be playing their role, I think is the word I'm looking for, on this Jets team following the draft? And I'll link the article in the chat for those who want to check it out.
Much appreciated, buddy. Yeah, I don't remember the exact order that I went in, but I think the first was Justin Fields. Was kind of figured that was the hot name to start with. Yeah, I think when you're evaluating the draft, it's easy to kind of look at the prospects and be like, oh, if the Jets took Azareye'h Thomas, like that's sending an immediate message to Brandon Stevens. And we'll talk about that. We'll get into that. I appreciate you linking this article in the chat, by the way.
No problem.
But yeah, I think we'll start with Fields. I think the Jets made it very clear that this is Justin Fields' team. And there were comments made by Aaron Glenn leading up to the draft that had already hinted at that, where they've made it clear, hey, they want to give Justin Fields an opportunity to prove that he can be the guy. I'm not confident that will be the case, but I think the Jets do everything that they possibly can to prove that he can be the long-term answer for this team. The way that they've already constructed this roster, it just feels like how you would want to build a team around Justin Fields. The Armand Membu pick, obviously, is the first thing that comes to mind. The Jets solidified their offensive line. There were a lot of discussions going into the draft. Hey, are they going to take a guy like Armand Membu or Kelvin Banks, or are they going to go the Tyler Warren route? Because there's a lot of Jets fans that I'm sure were disappointed when Tyler Warren was not the pick at 7. I think the Membu pick is a great way of saying, all right, this is how we want to build around Justin Fields. They now have 5, if they are the players that we think they are, they have 5 locked in stud offensive linemen, all under the age of 28 on this roster. Now, the pass catching core is not particularly great. They did address it a little bit with Arian Smith, the Georgia wide receiver in the which, well, yeah, we could get into that at some point. Not my favorite pick by any means, but they added somebody to the room. But if you look at how that, receiving corps looks, obviously Mason Taylor was a fantastic pickup in the second round. I'm sure we'll get into that. But it's really, outside of Garrett Wilson, there's not a lot of sure things in that room. And I do not expect the Jets to come out and throw the ball 40 times a game like they were doing a lot last year with Aaron Rodgers. The Jets were, I believe, had the fewest rushing attempts in the entire NFL last year. The way that they've constructed this roster, both in the draft and in free agency, tells me that they're going to lean on Justin Fields, lean on the ground game as much as they can, not ask him to do too much, and they're going to do everything they can to build around him. And the other part about it is the Jets didn't draft the quarterback. And I know George Travis, tragically, it's a very sad situation. He
definitely,
unfortunately, forced to retire. I believe the Jets probably, whether they knew that for a fact or not going into the draft, I'm sure they had a strong belief that that was a possibility based on the words and comments from Aaron Glenn and Darren Muji leading up to the draft. So that means the Jets probably knew they were going into the draft with Justin Fields, Tyrod Taylor, Adrian Martinez as their quarterbacks that they can realistically, quote unquote, count on going into 2025. And they still did draft the quarterback. So this is Justin Fields' team going into next year that is undisputed, and they're going to give him every opportunity to prove that he can be the guy. And that's awesome for him.
Undoubtedly. Now, next up on this list, you put Breece Hall, and kind of break down how you think this affects Breece Hall, because they didn't end up drafting a running back. There were the trade rumors swirling around prior to the draft. The Jets don't trade Breece Hall. The Jets don't draft a running back. The way I can kind of twist this towards you is, let's say things go haywire to start the season. You think Breece Hall could potentially be on the move, despite you kind of dubbing his roster, his spot on the roster as of now safe, since they have not traded him. The Jets indicated they haven't spoken to teams regarding Hall's status, and they didn't draft a running back. You think there's any chance that happens if they, let's say, God forbid, they go 0-4, 0-5 to start the season, and he's playing like crap, and they're not going to extend him?
Oh, yeah, definitely. I don't think his future with the team is certain by any means, even after the draft, but it is more certain than it was going into the draft.
Yes.
Despite what the Jets may have publicly said about there not being any conversations, there have been. I don't know to what degree those conversations have been had. I don't know. I don't think it's been a situation where the Jets are shopping him. I don't think it's been a situation where they're calling teams and saying, hey, what are you going to give us for Breece? But I do think it's a situation where other teams have called the Jets to check in on Breece's availability, and the Jets have not outright said, no, he's not available. And I think that was where I was at going into the draft, and why that, there were trade rumors around Breece Hall's name. And I don't think that was just smoke. There was legitimate fire behind that smoke. And I think that there was a chance that he was going to get moved. Now, I don't think that was contingent on them drafting Ashton Jeanty at all, like a lot of people were saying. I don't know if the Jets would have considered Jeanty if he was there at 7. I would guess no. But I do think there was a real possibility that Breece Hall was traded during the draft. Now, that didn't happen, which means that the Jets are still saying, all right, look, we're going to give Breece Hall an opportunity, much like Justin Fields. They're going to give him an opportunity with this new regime to prove that he can be a long-term player with this Jets team. Unfortunately, it's a situation where Breece Hall is coming off the worst year of his career, or at least a highly disappointing season. And it's very difficult to evaluate a lot of players in the Jets roster last year because almost everybody regressed because the situation was just so bad.
Yeah.
But Breece was especially disappointing, I think.
6 fumbles, I think he had last year.
6 fumbles, 9 drops. He only had 3 fumbles in his entire NFL career before last year. He doubled that in one season. Led the team. I believe he led the team in drops. Alan Lazard might have had a beat there, but it's not good when you're in Alan
Lazard. Exactly.
So that was a major issue. And the quickest way to be out of the NFL as a running back is if you have ball security issues. Now, the Jets aren't giving up on Breece Hall. They're not, even with those conversations being had, they weren't giving up on Breece Hall. This is a guy who 2 years ago was still top 4 in the NFL in scrimmage yards. Oh, yeah. But the running back position is so volatile that you have to take each year as its own standalone chapter in that player's story. Look at Travis Etienne. Travis Etienne a couple of years ago was considered a top 5 running back in the NFL, going into that 2023 season, and then he's fallen off a lot because the running back position is
we were texting about that a few weeks ago when we were going back and forth. We were texting about Jeanty going back and forth because you and I both held the same opinion on Ashton Jeanty strongly being considered if he was there at 7 overall, just because I think BPA was a huge part of this team's success. So my whole stance on Breece Hall has been, if you get the right value in a trade for a guy like him, I'd be open to it. I think the right value is a 3rd round pick. 4th round pick, I say no. 5th round pick, no way. So yeah. I think you need at least a 3rd round pick to move on from Breece Hall, whether they decide to trade him today whether they decide to trade him midway through the season. I'd only be willing to move on from Brees Hall if he was a 3rd-round pick. I mean, this guy was a 2nd-round pick, and he hasn't lived up to the 2nd-round hype at all. He's showed flashes of solid production. I always point to the season you mentioned, Justin, where he was top 4 in scrimmage yards. Let's keep in mind he was a safety net for Zach Wilson, who couldn't push the ball downfield, and that's where a lot of the yards came from. He ranked as a below-average back when it came to rushing yards. So, again, if you get a 3rd-round pick for Brees Hall, I'd certainly be open to moving him. At number 3 on this list, you had Brandon Stephens. I think this one's pretty much self-explanatory. The fact the Jets go out and use a top 75 pick on a cornerback after they just paid someone $36 million this offseason. Kind of flip the script here. Do you think there's any chance Brandon Stephens could be playing safety for this team in 2025?
I would be surprised. I forget if I've said this on this show, or I know I've obviously said it on the Jet Press podcast and on our website. Was not particularly a fan of the Brandon Stephens signing.
Yeah.
I've liked a lot of the moves that the Jets have made this offseason. I think that they've, for the most part, done everything that I would have done. They moved on from Aaron Rodgers, which I was supportive of. Their first 2 picks in the 2025 NFL draft were, I think, home run picks and picks that I would have been thrilled if you told me like a week before the draft they were going to make. And I still feel that way now. The Brandon Stephens signing is the one move that they've made that I was like, I don't know what we're doing here. Like, I get the vision. I understand why they made this signing, but unfortunately, like, I watched Brandon Stephens in Baltimore. I used to cover the Ravens. I watched him when he played safety, and I watched him when he played corner. He was not very good. I understand the ideology here and the thinking behind why they signed him. A lot of the issues that Brandon Stephens had, especially last year in coverage, where he just could not get his head turned around. He was the king of giving up contested catches because he'd be in the right position, but he wouldn't be able to knock the ball away. The Jets are thinking, okay, look, there's a baseline level of competence here that we can work with, and we can build upon that. And they believe they can maximize him. And fair. You know what? I was willing to be like, I don't like this signing, but we'll see if they can prove me wrong. And then the Azareye'h Thomas pick happens, which I don't think the Jets went into the draft expecting to take a cornerback on day 2. I don't think that was their plan. I do think there was some, legitimacy to the Jahdae Barron hype, but I don't think that was a player they were really going to consider at 7. I do think that the Jets were looking at cornerback, but probably not this early. I think it's a situation where Azareye'h Thomas fell to them at 73, and they felt the value was way too good to pass up. And maybe a couple of other targets. I think they may have been targeting Kyle Williams. That's not, I'm just guessing on that. That's not anything. The Patriots took him a few picks earlier. I think there's a world where, they would have wanted one of those guys instead. But with Azareye'h Thomas there, they got on the board at 73, and they're like, this guy is a perfect fit for the defense we want to run. And the value is just too good. With Brandon Stephens, the issue to me is I think the $12 million that they already gave him it's already an overpay for cornerback. If you're going to move him to safety, you're now making him one of the higher paid safeties in the NFL. He's playing a position that he's not played regularly in years, and he wasn't particularly great at it, but when he was playing it, I just think that's a really poor use of assets, and it would make that signing, which was already questionable, look even worse. And I know people will say, oh, just get your best 11 on the field. Sure, but that doesn't make the signing look any better. I don't think that they go that route. I think they want him to play corner, and I think realistically, Azareye'h Thomas right now is just excellent depth, and he'll probably begin the year as the 4th corner on the depth chart, and that's fine. I would not be shocked at all if by the end of the year or by 2026, Thomas has already leapfrogged Stephens on that depth chart.
I mean, how long will Brandon Stephens really be here? That's the question. I like what Aaron Glenn did, and everything Aaron Glenn said indicates he will be playing cornerback. Obviously, Aaron Glenn, a former cornerback, and he said it before. The poor ball skills. He's always there. He's always where the plays are being made. He just can't turn his head around and get those interceptions. And I think that's what Aaron Glenn wants to work on really with him. My thoughts on the AZ Thomas pick: great player value, terrible positional value in my eyes. And the way I look at how the Jets handled the draft, right? They took the right tackle. I wanted Tyler Warren. Can't complain about solidifying the offensive line by any measures. Take Mason Taylor in the second. I want to get your thoughts on this pick in a second here. I'm not too big of a Mason Taylor fan. I'll say that right now. I don't like the 2nd round value for any of the tight ends. I said if you weren't going to take a tight end in the 1st round, wait until round 3. I like Tyler Warren. I like Colston Loveland. I really liked Harold Fannin Jr. He was higher ranked on my board as a tight end. Didn't like Elijah Arroyo. Didn't like a 1-year wonder who'd been riddled with injuries. Loved Gunnar Helm, who I don't think got picked until the late 3rd round, early 4th round. I didn't like the fact that you took someone who hasn't been able to stand out as an elite receiving threat and gives you no blocking value. That's the main thing I didn't like there. Like, at least with Harold Fannin Jr., you're getting the crazy speed, his crazy athletic traits. He's able to stand out and thrive in a scheme centered around him. I just don't think we've seen that from Mason Taylor. I think he's a guy you draft. I think he could sophisticate his route tree a little more. This is a guy you draft who I think still needs some more development at the NFL level. I just don't think it's the best value in the second round. I mean, the way I would have played the board is you go Warren at 7, Ati Trapillo at 42. That's the way I would have done it. I just overall though, we're getting off track here. Thoughts on the Mason Taylor pick, and do you like him as a player?
Yeah, I'm a lot higher on it on Mason Taylor and the pick as a whole than you are. I think the value is good. I had him in my final mock, and again, this wasn't like he's a top 32 player in the class, but I had him in my mock going 32 to the Eagles in my final mock. Thought he could be like a Dallas Goedert replacement. So there was genuine like some round 1 talk. I thought that would have been probably a little bit rich, but top of round 2, early round 2 seems like good value for me, for a guy who I think maybe out of every tight end in this class that's not Colston Loveland and I guess Tyler Warren has the highest floor of any tight end in this class. I am very confident that Mason Taylor is going to be a good NFL player. I don't know if he's ever going to be a superstar. I don't see that necessarily with his film, with his tape. I don't really see a guy who's going to be putting up 1,000 yards every year. I don't see that, but I do see a guy who, like a Hunter Henry, can be a very good tight end in the NFL for a decade or whatever. And that's something that the Jets desperately needed. I like Harold Fannin. I like him a lot. The issue that I had with Fannin more so as a fit for the Jets is just the blocking isn't there. He is an oversized.
Same with Taylor, though.
I think Taylor played like 60% of his snaps in line last year at LSU.
He played a lot in line, but he was getting killed in the run game. Like he couldn't run block.
I think he's a bit of a better blocker than you're giving him credit for. I don't think he's a bad blocker by any means.
I think Fannin has better technique, and I think Fannin was able to hold his own last year at Bowling Green. The problem is you can't be 6'3", 230 and block defensive ends or linebackers at the NFL level. It's not feasible.
I think the baseline floor is already there with Taylor as a blocker. I think he's a fine blocker. I wouldn't call it a weakness of his game. And I will say, like you said, he's 6'5", 255 or whatever he is. There's only room to grow as a blocker, and I would hope that he continues to get better, especially because not only do they have their new tight ends coach, but they have their offensive line coach, Steve Hyden, is a former NFL tight end who worked a lot, obviously, with the tight ends in Detroit. He was their tight ends coach, and he also worked with offensive linemen. He worked a lot in the blocking game. So I'm hoping they can continue to work on that aspect of his game, but I don't think it's a weakness. I definitely wouldn't say it. I don't really think Mason Taylor has an obvious weakness in his game. I don't think he has any elite standout traits, but as a receiver, very good baseline there. He is LSU's all-time leading receiver amongst all tight ends, which it's not saying a lot. He never had over 600 yards in a season. And he also never had more than, what was it in a game? He never had like more than 70 yards in a game.
Just had like 6 touchdowns across all 3 of his seasons.
I know, it's crazy to look at the history of LSU tight ends. It's not very good. Or just the passing game in general. But also only 1 drop last year. Very sure hands. I do think he's already a decent route runner. I don't think it's a weakness of his game. How I view him and I project him to the NFL is if his ceiling hits, he's Tyler Conklin who can block. And that's good. That's Tyler Conklin's biggest weakness was he couldn't block at all.
Would you take that in the second round though? Would you take that with the top second round pick?
Tyler Conklin who can block is a top 8 to tight end in the NFL. I'm a Tyler Conklin fan.
I love Tyler Conklin.
Yeah.
I just think a Tyler Conklin who can block is more like a tight end 14, 15 in the league. Like define block. Is he going to be a top 10 blocking tight end, or is he going to be a top 20 blocking tight end?
I think he will be an above average blocking tight end in a year or 2 years, 2 to 3 years, because tight ends it takes a couple of years to develop. But I think already right now he comes in. I think he's their best blocking tight end, which is not saying much because there is Jeremy Ruckert and. Listen, man, Long Island's own. I love Jeremy Ruckert.
Yes.
Want him to do well. He's not good. He's just not a good blocker at this stage, and he's definitely not a particularly potent receiving threat. So Mason Taylor already comes in as your best blocking tight end, which is why I viewed him as more of a fit for the Jets than a guy like a Harold Fannin, who I just can't project to be that at the NFL. He's never going to be a good blocker in the NFL. He's just he's an oversized wide receiver. Or like an Aronde Gadsden, very similar type player where he
love Gadsden too.
I love Gadsden too, but I just with this Jets offense, the way that I imagine they're going to use their tight ends, if it's anything like how the Lions use their tight ends, you need guys who can play in line. You need guys that can block. And I think Mason Taylor can already do that at a level that's better than anyone else on the roster right now. So, yeah, I was definitely a big fan of that pick. I think the floor is so high. And the goal was, and this honestly relates to the AZ Thomas pick too, I think the goal, regardless of position, was landing guys who could be long-term starters in this draft. You are reshaping the vision of this roster under Aaron Glenn and Darren Muji. They are bringing their guys in the building. I honestly don't really care what positions they're playing as long as they are good play. I mean, obviously, you're not going to grab a kicker in the top 50.
Yeah.
But as long as they are playing positions that will make an impact in this team, I don't care where they go. So Mason Taylor, I'm very confident will be a long-term starter in the NFL, hopefully with the Jets, and that's why I'm happy with the pick at 42.
Appreciate you tuning in. Smash the like button. Hit subscribe. Any questions for Justin? I throw them in the chat. Call into the show with the pinned comment. Every $2.99 super chat or gifted membership get you a raffle entry. Sauce Gardner signed jersey. Kevin Mawai signed helmet. Aaron Glenn signed trading card. Jonathan Vilma signed photo. Bart Scott signed photo among the prize we're giving away this month. Every $2.99 super chat or gifted membership gets you a raffle entry. Let's kick things off with some UDFA talk. Our guy Caden comes in the chat, says, I hope Edwards makes the roster. He's certainly exciting. He's 7 yards per carry in 2022, Justin.
Yeah,
what
man.
I look for in these UDFA guys is someone I look for something different in everyone. Like Brady Cook, we're going to get into him in a little because you and I are both huge Brady Cook fans. He's someone who I think has great escapability and someone who could be a great quality backup long-term. Like there's a high floor. There's not as high of a ceiling, but there's a high floor. Donovan Edwards has a sky-high ceiling, someone who averaged 7 yards per carry, which pretty much around the same mark as Ashton Genty last season. I think Edwards has the potential to do great things at the NFL level. Coaching and development is going to be key.
Yeah, I mean, Donovan Edwards after that 2022 season was being talked about as a future top 50 pick, possibly a first-round pick. There was so much hype around this guy. I mean, there's a reason he's on the College Football 25 cover. Like,
yes.
And that is like the first thing when people think of Donovan Edwards, they think of at this point, which it's unfortunate he wasn't able to do much in 2023 and 2024 to justify that hype. But yeah, if you just watch that 2022 film, you see a guy who can be a very good player at the NFL level. 2023 and 2024 are they're a bit more concerning. I do think, first of all, it's probably the most high profile undrafted pickup that the Jets made. Just, he's a former star running back at Michigan. But I do think he has a chance to stick around at the NFL level. The translatable traits to me are he's a very good pass catcher, which that is not something that a lot of running backs coming out of college usually can hang their hat on. It's not a trait that a ton of colleges develop, but in the 2023 season, 30 catches, 249 yards, just always very sure-handed as well out of the backfield. And he's a pretty good blocker, which that can help you earn a role too. The big knock on him that I've seen a lot coming out of the last couple of years at Michigan and why he wasn't able to earn a bigger role, his vision is not particularly good. And it really was apparent these last 2 years where I think a lot of that 2022 season was reliant on big plays. He had a ton of long runs, a ton of highlight reel runs. Last 2 years, he didn't have any of that. Like, are you
talking about Breece Hall or Donovan Edwards?
Honestly, there are similar comparisons. Which Breece Hall's been a great, or at least he had a great year in 2023, and I don't think he's a bad NFL running back. There are some comparisons there. I don't think he's not nearly as fast as Breece Hall. I don't think he's quite the athlete that Breece is. He ran a 4.44 40-yard dash, which is not slow. Breece, I think, was 4.39 or whatever. I do think Edwards plays a little bit slower though. He's not slow by any means, but I think he plays a bit slower than that. But yeah, those last 2 years, he didn't have a single run of over 50 yards. And it's telling that they brought other guys in, and each year he was passed up on the depth chart. This past year was Kalal Mullings, who I thought was the better running back in Michigan. And, that's the reason. That's the reason Donovan Edwards went undrafted. When we're talking about any of these UDFA guys, there's going to be a lot of downsides. There's going to be a lot of negatives about them because they went undrafted for a reason. But Edwards' path to a roster spot is going to be proving that he could be a reliable change of pace back and proving that he can be a third down guy who can excel as a pass catcher and hold his own as a pass blocker, which, the Jets really don't have that. I think Braylon Allen is the highest ceiling as a pass blocker of any of the running backs on the roster, but it's not really a strength of Breece Hall's game. And the receiving ability, which we thought was a strength of his game in 2023, took a big step back in 2024. So if Edwards is going to push for a roster spot, that's probably how he's going to do it.
Vero Beach Jet fan comes in his past 3 seasons. Breece Hall was a top 20 or better total yards out of the entire NFL. You don't trade a top 5+ player, SMH.
Okay. Well, so 2023, yes. So 2023, I was as high on Breece Hall as you're going to find anybody. I was going into the year being like, hey, this dude, is he the second best running back in the NFL behind Christian McCaffrey? Like,
that was all of us. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's look in that 2023 season. If we're going to glaze Breece for a second, rightfully so, because he was outstanding in 2023. Let's talk about that because he was top 4 in scrimmage yards. The only 3 guys ahead of him were Tyreek Hill, Christian McCaffrey, and CeeDee Lamb. All of those guys played in top 5 offenses. Brees Hall played in the 31st ranked offense, and he was still top 4 in scrimmage yards. He was the Jets offense. He was their entire offense. Now, like you mentioned, Connor, a lot of that was, hey, let's check it down to Brees. We have no other option. Zach Wilson's just going to check it down to Brees. But Brees did good in that role. And he was very, for the most part, sure-handed out of the backfield, and he was able to capitalize on those highlight reel plays, and you'd have a lot more explosiveness out of Brees Hall. 2024, we didn't see that player. Now, I'm not ready to give up on him because I did watch him in 2023, and I can apply context to last year and say, hey, look, he didn't get the ball nearly as much as he should have. The Jets running game, while I think their offensive line was talented, their entire offensive game plan and their run, especially their running game plan, was atrocious. And a lot of that falls on Aaron Rodgers. A lot of that falls on the coaching staff. Look at you, Keith Carter, who was their run game coordinator. There were just constant offensive line miscommunications up front that really just derailed the running game entirely. And that's not Brees Hall's fault. That said, I do think he left a lot of meat on the bone. And even outside of the fumbles and the ball security issues, I don't think he was the player that we saw in 2023 in a lot of ways. And
agreed.
there were a lot of runs that, I thought a lot of plays I thought he could have made that he didn't. So it's really just looking at it year to year with him. Like the 2023 season, he was outstanding. 2024, he was a below average running back. I think he was a below average running back last season.
Yep.
And so now you're looking at his future. He's on the last year of his rookie deal. You have other big money extensions to guys like Sauce Gardner and Garrett Wilson you have to worry about. Who knows what they're going to do with the Quincy Williams, John Simpson, and Elijah Vera Tucker, both free agents at the end of the year. They have a lot of big financial decisions to make. Brees Hall might be the guy that gets the short end of the stick, and it's hard to fault them if he gets off to another slow start to start this year.
I completely agree with you there, Justin. I think the biggest thing and why Brees Hall was disappointing for most last season is because you look at what he did in 2023, obviously, and you think improved O-line play, new O-line pieces, increased quarterback play. The offense around him is going to be so much more elevated, playing behind what was expected to be a top 10 offensive line unit last year. This guy's game is just going to go to a whole nother level. If he's eclipsing 1,500 yards with these circumstances, let's wait until Aaron Rodgers comes back on the field, and let's wait until this offensive line is bolstered. And ultimately, we didn't get that jolt that was expected when the 2024 season kicks off. Caden comes back and says, "Do you think Adrian Martinez will stay on the roster?" Justin,
he has a chance. Right now. It's a 2-man race between him and Brady Cooker. It
Cook all day.
It depends what you mean by stay on the roster, because I think there's a chance the Jets just carry 2 quarterbacks on the 53-man. Now, obviously, they're going to have at least one. They will guaranteed have a minimum of 3 quarterbacks under contract. Maybe a guy like Martinez or Cook is able to stay. A lot of teams do carry 3 quarterbacks in the 53 now. In fact, most teams do, just because of the inactive quarterback rule. That you can basically have an extra player as active in theory. But it's just, I don't know if Cook or Martinez are going to justify 53-man spots this summer. If they do, awesome. I just see that as a position that maybe they make a cut there. But either way, one of those guys presumably will be the Jets quarterback 3 going into next year. Maybe they add somebody in rookie minicamp, like maybe, so I think they did that last year with Andrew
Byron Jarrett.
Yeah, they had Pee Wee Jarrett, and Andrew Peasley, I believe, was their rookie minicamp tryout.
Yeah.
Signing. Maybe they do that just to get another guy in the room. But it's going to be Cook or Martinez. I think Martinez is fine. Martinez is a younger, probably more athletic version of Luis Perez for those who follow spring football. Luis Perez, the king of spring. I see Martinez as or if to use a baseball terminology, he's a quadruple A player, right? Where I don't think he is an NFL quarterback, but I think he's good enough to get a bunch of shots in camp and probably stick around as a QB3. And honestly, how thin the quarterback rooms in the NFL are. I mean, Tim Boyle is one Will Levis trade away from fighting for the QB2 job in Tennessee, which is crazy. So if that can happen, sure, Adrian Martinez is an NFL quarterback. But I do think there's more upside with a guy like Brady Cook. Now, the mistakes with Cook are infuriating. He locks on a receiver as he is a developmental quarterback in its truest form, and there's a reason he went undrafted. But he's more than a camp arm. He's more than a, not to take a shot at a John Walford, right? Or a Tommy DeVito, where I'm like, this is not an NFL quarterback.
John Wall. Oh my goodness.
That's a throwback.
All the names. He was with the Rams, right? Are we thinking okay, we're thinking of the right guy. I was just
previously with the Jets. He had a summer with the Jets, and he was about to start his career on Wall Street. And then the Jets were like, "Hey, you want to be our training camp quarterback?" And he was like, "Hell yeah!" And he's actually laid that into an NFL career. So shout out John Walford for that.
Yeah.
But I don't see that with Brady Cook. I see a guy who has a good enough arm to stick at the NFL level. I don't think it's an amazing arm by any means, but solid arm talent, and he's a good athlete. Like
Yeah.
very underrated athlete, I think. I don't think that was talked about enough in Missouri. And I think there's baseline level of skill and talent that he has that you can work with that and
Doesn't turn the ball over.
yeah, not a significant issue in his game. Absolutely, I think there's enough that you could work with that he could develop into a backup quarterback, which is what you want out of an undrafted.
Yes. And we both wrote an article about Brady Cook, and mine, I pretty much said, like, even if Brady Cook is your long-term backup,
Yeah.
that is a UDFA steal by Darren Muji any day of the week. So, I mean, let's go down the list. What do you look for in a quarterback in the NFL? Someone with escapability. That's what's favored now. The young athletic quarterbacks. Well, Cook brings that to the table. What you look for in a backup, someone who could cut. The way I always define a backup, if you need them to start 4 games, you want them to lead you to a 2-2 record.
Sure.
That's your goal. Cook can do that. You don't want a backup who's going to come in and throw 1 touchdown and 3 interceptions like Jameis Winston will. You want someone who's going to come in, not going to turn the ball over, play safe, and is going to be a threat. And I think Brady Cook offers all those things. So I really, really am looking forward to see what he could do. And you mentioned Tommy DeVito. That's a name out there that's available. With the Travis injury, are you okay keeping it just Adrian Martinez and Brady Cook behind Tyrod Taylor and Justin Fields? Or would you look to maybe add one more quarterback? DeVito's a name still out there. Carson Wentz, Teddy Bridgewater. You looking to add anyone else? Are you pretty content with the 4 guys the Jets have right now?
I'm happy with what they got. I think the Jets are too. If they add anybody, it'll be another undrafted guy. I don't imagine they would add another veteran name to this room. They have their backup in Tyrod Taylor. That's what they need. Last year, I believe they carried maybe 5 quarterbacks into camp, but that was partially because Jordan Travis was not playing. So he was one of those quarterbacks.
Did Jarrett make that?
Jarrett, it was Rodgers, Tyrod, Peasley, Travis, and Martinez. But obviously Travis didn't end up playing.
Yeah. By the way, that Jarrett story, that guy was like a Division II player, I think. He played like some
Jarrett. Yeah, dude, I was so excited for him when they signed him because I was like, oh, because he's huge. He's like 6'5", 240. And then I think it was medicals that ended up getting him cut.
I follow him on Instagram, and I've been following like I looked at his Wikipedia page not too long ago. He plays in like some arena football league in Arizona now or something. And I just saw on his Instagram, he just tore his Achilles again, and he's out for the year. So that's a guy who's like crazy arm strength. Like he's just a pure gunslinger who's just gonna push the ball down the field. And like I've always wondered, how much do you make going to rookie minicamp? I feel like I've looked that up before. How much do players make going to rookie? They have to make something.
Yeah, guys that are not under contract that are just going there as on a tryout basis. I don't know. It's something. They get paid to be there for sure.
Yeah.
It's not one of those things where they're paying to be there. They're definitely getting paid. I don't know what it is.
It has to be something.
I wonder if there's a bonus too for like the UDFA guys who are actually under contract who are going there. Because I mean, some of the rookie minicamps, obviously they have guys who are under contract as well.
$1,700 a year if you're a new player. So if you're a rookie, it's $1,700 a year. If you're a returning player, so past your first season in the league, it's $2,900.
All right. I mean, hell, I'll take that. You want to send me to rookie? Jets, sign me up, man. I'll go there. I'll try out as whatever position you want. You want me to be a long snapper? I'll do it.
Yeah, for sure. They've had some fun names in rookie minicamp. Hopefully, it'll be interesting to see the way the Jets kind of handle building this roster. The way I've been looking at Darren Mushi and Aaron Glenn, I've been really, and for those who watch the show regularly, you know this. I've been big on value, getting solid value wherever. I've been going back and forth comparing the Jets to, comparing that to a lot of Super Bowl, a lot of the teams that are successful year in and year out, like the Chiefs and the Eagles. They hit on their top 75 picks every year, but then they take guys on day 3 and turn them into Pro Bowlers, turn them into legit starters. And I think that's what the Jets really need to do, Justin, if they want to get out of this whole breakthrough and create really a dynasty.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I wasn't in love with the Jets day 3 picks, but if there's one guy who I think can absolutely be that value for them and be a potential starter as soon as this year, it's oh my God, I'm completely blanking on his name. Alabama safety, Malachi
Moore.
Thank you. I want to say Malachi Monroe, and I'm like, who is Malachi Monroe? That's not the guy that
Jarius Monroe, Malachi.
Maybe that's
Moore, getting the safeties mixed up.
Yeah, Malachi Moore, I think absolutely can be that guy for the Jets. I wouldn't be shocked at all if he's pushing Tony Allen for that job this summer. The Jets traded up to get him at 130, and they that very much of any of the picks that were made, like even more than the Isaiah Thomas pick, this was an Aaron Glenn pick. This is a guy who I'm like, this is exactly who Aaron Glenn loves in a player. He's someone who started over I think he started almost 50 games at Alabama, played over 60, was also their first true freshman defensive back starter since Minka Fitzpatrick.
Team captain.
When he started in 2019 or 20, whatever it was, his first year at Alabama. He played that a little bit of that star position too, which is something that Aaron Glenn talked about when they were asking him about Malachi Moore after the draft. Aaron Glenn said that he spoke to Brian Branch, who Brian Branch is when he coached in Detroit. He knows him very well. Branch played that star position under Nick Saban in Alabama, went on to be a fantastic safety nickel hybrid in Detroit. I'm not saying Malachi Moore is going to be that. I don't think he's the athlete that Brian Branch is, but when you're watching Malachi Moore, you see that high IQ, you see the leadership, you see that experience that he has, and the versatility. And I think he's someone who can immediately come in and be a contributor day one. And again, I would not be shocked at all if some point in 2025 and going into 2026, he is a starting safety for the Jets. And that is a position. The safety position is a position where you can very easily find day one starters or at least future starters on day 3 of the draft. Tony Adams was undrafted, and not that Tony Adams is a phenomenal player by any means, but that's
great value.
Yeah, that's exactly.
I am a Tony Adams jersey owner, so I'm one of few people who own a Tony Adams jersey. I always love guys who are undrafted and come in and just make big impact. I wouldn't say Tony Adams made a big impact, but for a UDFA, again, great value. He's been a great player for this team. I always remember him for that Eagles interception in week 5 or 6, I believe it was, in 2023. So I'll always be a big Tony Adams fan, no matter where he goes. Getting benched by the owner was absolute bull crap. So I will always support Tony Adams through thick and thin. So I'm a big Tony Adams.
He was low-key their best safety last year. And
Absolutely.
He got not that the safety room was great, but I thought he's fine. He's a fine player.
Without a doubt. And I want to touch on one more undrafted free agent before we move on, get to more of your questions in the chat. Keep those coming. We appreciate those. That is Jamal Pritchett, South Alabama wide receiver. I know you've tweeted about him. I wrote an article about him. I think this is a guy who could legitimately push Xavier Gipson for a roster spot. And besides Gibson's electrifying return in 2023 week 1 that we'll never forget, he hasn't been great as a punt returner, and he's virtually provided no value as an offensive player. Pritchett, a little smaller than Gibson, but Pritchett can kind of be that spark plug guy you throw in there on punt returns, give you some value. He's an offensive threat, led the Sun Belt in receiving yards last season, was very, very productive overall as a punt returner. PFF graded them high, and I think he averaged 15 yards a return. So super, super high on Pritchett. I'm going to ask you the question that I answered in the article. Do you think he can actually push Xavier Gipson for a roster spot this summer?
Oh, absolutely. I think when you have a new regime like this coming in, a new coaching staff, all the guys like the Xavier Gibsons and the Michael Clemens and the Jeremy Ruckerts, whoever that were draft picks or undrafted guys of the last regime who are at the bottom of the roster, those spots are all up for grabs. Xavier Gipson is on level playing field with Jamal Pritchett going into this year. It does not matter that he's been on an NFL roster going into this summer. He is on level playing field. Now, maybe he stands out and proves that he's a better player. I don't know, but Pritchett, there's enough there to like, and I do think he's going to be the Greg Dortch of this summer.
You put that in your tweet, right?
Yeah, because it's so obvious where it's undersized, hyper-productive college guy comes in and wins over the hearts of fans. Like that's what happens every single year. And Pritchett is small. He's 5'8", like 100
5'7", 174.
Yeah, that's 5'8", 5'7", 174. Yeah, he's crazy small. So he's not going to be someone who I expect to ever have a major role as an NFL wide receiver. I mean, Dortch has actually done decently well for himself, but he's exceeded expectations there. But I do think that Pritchett can push for that punt return job. It's weird because if you look at his punt return numbers at South Alabama, at least this past season, he did return one for a touchdown. Outside of that, he had one other return that was longer than 5 yards. He actually didn't return a ton this past season at South Alabama. I wonder
12.
If he was,
he
only returned 12 times at South Alabama. And I do wonder how much of that was, hey, let's not use this guy too much because he's our best receiver. But he clearly has at least experience doing it, and he has done it well. I believe the last 2 years, he had a touchdown but he had a touchdown last year as a punt returner. So that experience as a special teamer, I think, is going to give him a shot to push for a roster spot. I'd probably still give the nod to Gibson right now, or maybe neither of them. I think there's other receivers that could push for that.
Yeah.
That's the Rutgers guy that they signed, Dymere Miller, I think, is another guy who can push for that. I don't believe he has the same level of experience as a returner, but another hyper-productive product of Monmouth. Shout out Monmouth. And then he went to Rutgers last year in receiving. Also ran a 4.37 40-yard dash. So there's going to be a lot of competition out of those top, I think the top 5 wide receivers are probably locked in. And then once you get to the Malachi Corleys, the Xavier Gibsons, the Irv Charles, all the undrafted guys, Brandon Smith, who was one of my favorites last summer, all of those guys are going to be competing for probably 1 or 2 spots. And it's going to be fun. It's going to be fun to see who emerges.
Yes, certainly. I always I like the guys who were able to come in and play right away, come in rookie minicamp, and not only make the roster but make an impact right away. I'm still kicking myself over the fact the Jets didn't roster Brandon Codrington last year, because I don't care about the fact they didn't want to put a pure returner, but I mean that guy would have just provided so much juice for this team. So I'm really hoping the Jets could find this next punt returner, because not only did Xavier Gibson, was he not productive, like there were times he was scared. Like defenders would be 10, 15 yards away and he'd call for a fair catch when he could have picked up a 10-yard return off that. And that's what frustrated me most. So I'm certainly looking forward to potentially getting a new kick returner in here. And to put it in perspective, I'm 5'9", and Jamal Pritchett did not go that's like 5'9.5". Jamal Pritchett did not go in the combine. So we're going off purely South Alabama's website here, which could be lying. So let's say Jamal Pritchett's about 5'6", 5'5". They lie about a few inches. I'm about 2 to 4 inches taller than Jamal Pritchett as a 13-year-old, to put that in a perspective.
I will defend him and say that his pro day lists him at 5'8", 175.
Okay, so they gave him an inch. Okay. Oh, where'd you get the pro day measurements?
I got it from Brugler's guide.
Okay.
So for guys like that, wasn't at the combine, but they show his pro day numbers.
Still got an inch on him.
Right now, and pro day numbers are also not always fully accurate. Yes. Wild that you're 5'9", by the way. You're very tall for your age. That's great.
How tall are you, Justin?
I am 5'11", roughly. So I still got speed. I don't feel bad for a 13-year-old. 14? What are you, 14?
13.
Jesus Christ. I don't feel bad that a 13-year-old is not, you're not taller than me, which is good, but you're probably going to be. You're probably soon enough.
Hey, I'm definitely trying to clear this. Apparently I'm supposed to be between 6'3" and 6'6". Kind of want to be more towards the 6'3" side, because I don't want to be awkwardly tall. So I think 6'3" is a solid height. You stand out.
We're gonna get you on the basketball court, man.
I play a little. I'm more of a baseball and golf type guy, but yeah, I'll play basketball. I broke my nose playing basketball this winter, which was tough. But yeah, I'll get out and play basketball, especially in the winter. But we appreciate you guys as always. A few more questions in the chat here before we go ahead and do the membership raffle. New prize this month: every $2.99 super chat gifted membership gets you an entry. Crispy, we got a few questions from Chris here, who says, would you like if our New York Jets added a linebacker and free agency to our roster like Kazir White, Jawan Bentley, Jalen Reeves-Maybin, etc., linebacker, special teams, etc.? Love Bentley, spoke about him a lot. Reeves-Maybin is someone who's crossed my mind. It's just a pure special teamer. He was the special teams captain in Detroit. He's the president of the NFLPA, I believe. Yeah. I like Reeves-Maybin. I really liked Bentley before the draft, but since they got Kiko Maui-Goa, I think that's going to be the big, bulky run stuffer, and I thought that was the role that Bentley could have potentially played on this team.
Yeah, Chris, I believe Chris asked that in the Jet Press chat about Kaiser White. I think Kaiser White has been signed, though. Hasn't he been signed by somebody?
I think he went to the Raiders. No.
Or the Cardinals.
Probably Cardinals.
Cardinals. I believe re-signed with the Cardinals. Wasn't he with the Cardinals last year? Yeah, so I think he is reportedly re-signed with the Cardinals. I don't think they're going to make any additions to the linebacker room unless they do a shocking Quincy Williams trade after the draft, which I don't expect to happen at this stage. I mean, you never know. Yeah. The situation can go downhill, but I don't think they're gonna make any additions there. Reeves-Maybin makes sense. He is a free agent. He was with Aaron Glenn in Detroit, and I'd have to look and see the market. I don't know if there's anybody that's out there that would have been a Chris Banjo guy that they bring in as a special teamer, but I think they're going to roll into next year with Jamie Sherwood and Quincy Williams as one of the best linebacker duos in the NFL. I mean, that's a fantastic duo. And then whatever else they get out of their other linebackers, they'll be cool with. You got Francisco Mauigoa, who you mentioned that they brought in. Zaire Barnes is still kicking around. Marcelino McCrary-Ball is kind of that special teamer that, I know Barnes, he didn't even play last year, but he's still on the team.
I want Surratt back. Give me Chad Surratt $2 million.
They could. They could. They didn't bring Surratt back. Surratt very much feels like a solid guy. I wouldn't be shocked if he goes to Francisco and just joins in there. But sure, I think Surratt is fine. And they also got a couple of UDFAs from last year, like Jackson Sermon is still there. And Jamin
solid.
Davis, who's an interesting name. He was
Former
a
first-round pick.
He's not particularly good. He was not very good in Washington, but maybe he can push for that third spot. Honestly, the job is wide open for a guy like Malingoa to come in and earn that third linebacker job. I don't imagine whoever it is going to play a ton. I imagine they're going to go very heavy on the 5 DBs and maybe even 6 DBs at times and not worry about that third linebacker spot too much. But one injury to Sherwood or Williams right now, you are looking at a pretty thin linebacker room. So I would not be opposed to it. I just think they're probably feeling like they're okay with it. Kaiser White would have made sense because what is he, probably like 27, 28, Kaiser White?
Yeah, 28, I think, probably definitely in that range.
Yes. 29, surprisingly, actually, a little older than I thought. So he fits that mold of like a player they would sign. Reeves Maben is 30, so I know it's only a year difference there, but there's that's a special team signing. If they bring him in, that's strictly because they want another veteran on special teams.
Certainly. Chris comes back and says, do you like wide receivers to free agency like DJ Chark, Tyler Boyd, Keenan Allen, Amari Cooper, Nelson Aguilar? I really like Keenan Allen at the right price.
I just think it's the same situation with the linebacker thing where they're not going to be in the market for those guys. Like I wouldn't hate it by any means, but they're not looking at, like, first of all, it's a two-way street. I don't think Keenan Allen wants to sign with the Jets. I don't think Keenan Allen or Amari Cooper, I mean, it's probably less so with the guys like DJ Chark and Nelson Aguilar who don't have as much sway. But a guy like Keenan Allen and Amari Cooper, they've been around forever. They're not going to sign with a team like the Jets, who is clearly not contending this year. They're clearly not competing for a Super Bowl, let alone a playoff spot, probably. So I don't think they'd want to sign with the Jets. And I just don't think the Jets, based on everything that they've done this offseason, are looking to bring in 30-plus-year-old veterans who, they already added their veterans to the wide receiver room, and that's Josh Reynolds. That's their veteran wide receiver that they added, and they brought in Tyler Johnson. I think that they like him a lot. They drafted Arian Smith. I honestly think the wide receiver room is a little crowded as is, like in terms of, not high-end talent. They don't really have anybody who's established themselves outside of Garrett Wilson, but just a lot of guys that they have in there. You don't really need to bring in other guys. Like, is DJ Chark really going to be better than, other guys that they got in the room? Like, I'd rather have Tyler Johnson than DJ Chark. I'd sure as hell rather have Tyler Johnson than Nelson Aguilar or Amari Cooper.
Yeah.
So I don't think the value is there. I don't think it makes sense. I just would be surprised if the Jets went that route.
My whole thing with the Jets receiver room, Josh Reynolds, Alan Lazard, when you have to talk about a receiver's blocking ability, they're just not good.
Yeah, pretty much. That's like a cherry on top thing. That's like a, hey, they're really good, but they also can block, which is great. If you're leading with that, it's kind of like with quarterbacks. If you're like, oh, he's a winner. Like if that's the first thing you tell me about this quarterback, like what is he doing by himself? Like the team.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Here, but what was he specifically doing?
Exactly. One thing I will add from Chris's linebacker comment earlier, I had a Miami Hurricanes beat reporter on to talk Tyler Barron and talk Francisco Mauigoa, and he pretty much said, so Mauigoa spent 2 seasons. The first question I asked him in the interview was, what'd you see growth-wise, development-wise from Mauigoa's first season at Miami to last year? He said the biggest thing is he stepped in as a massive leader as that middle linebacker. He said, and coming through the transfer portal was kind of tough to, find his footing right away first year on campus as a leader. But then his second year, he developed into the true captain of that defense. And while the Jets have Jamie and Sherwood, you can never complain about adding another young leader into this linebacker room. That's something I really liked. He said he doesn't think the ceiling is that high, but he believes he's someone who could be a linebacker 3 at the NFL level and someone who could be a special teams contributor. He just doesn't think his coverage is that great. And he said pretty much to be a 3-down linebacker in this league, you need to be great in coverage, especially at the NFL level. So Mauigoa, I really like Kobe King. I really liked Cody Simon, but Mauigoa is someone I don't hate. At day 3, again, you're just taking flyers at that point. So it's hard to complain about that. A few more minutes with Justin here, so we'll get to a couple more questions. Rich says, thoughts on Stiggers. Is there a real chance as roster worthy?
Oh, yeah, I think he could definitely make the team. I think unfortunately, bringing in Stevens and Thomas makes his path to a legitimate starting job a lot more difficult. I know some people have mentioned maybe they move him to safety. Sure, that's a possibility. Right now, he's still listed as a corner, and it's just a really crowded room. I do think he probably still makes the team, but there's a lot. I mean, we can count it down. It's Sauce Gardner, Brandon Stevens, Michael Carter, Azaria Thomas are probably your top 4. After that, you really have room for probably 2 guys, I would say, on the roster. So that's Stiggers, that's Jark Bernard-Converse. They signed Chris Boyd, who is a veteran special teamer, who's still on the team. And, he can play corner. It's not a Justin Hardy. Like, he has played corner and he can do it, but he he's a special teams guy. That's why he's there. It's a very crowded room. And then there's a few other, undrafted guys, especially if it's like a Jordan Clark they want to keep around because of ability. Also, Isaiah Oliver, who they brought back, who, based on reports, the Jets currently view him as a corner. I think they view him as like a backup nickel who has safety versatility.
He's kind of like a hybrid guy.
He is, but so he'll make the team too. So if you're listing him as a corner, that's another guy who's going to be making the team. I don't think he's playing outside corner for them. I think he'd be their primary nickel backup, core special teamer, also could play safety. So it's not like he's not a lock by any means, Stiggers, but I liked a lot of what we saw from him in the summer last year. Same with Bernard Converse. And it would be a shame if one of those guys doesn't make the team. I expect that to be the case. I think Stiggers would probably have the advantage over Bernard Converse. I think we saw a lot of good from him last year, and he's clearly a developmental guy that I'd like to keep around.
And Valette Aguilar would be a good pickup, speedy wide receiver to play ahead of Arian Smith until he's ready.
Again, I just don't think that's a move they'd make. How old is he? 31, something like that. Aguilar, probably around that. 30. He's 31 years old.
How much does that boost your overall production?
He had 14 catches last year, despite playing 14 games, and despite how many snaps he played. He started 7. He played 46% of offensive snaps, and he had 14 catches. I'm all right. Like I'm good on Nelson Aguilar. I get where you're coming from, though. Like, it's similar, like, hey, he's the speedy deep threat who can't catch. That's Arian Smith can learn from him, but I just don't think that's a move that they need to make. And I'd rather also just play Arian Smith. I mean, maybe he stinks. I don't know, but you're not going anywhere this year. Aguilar doesn't help you, achieve your goals, which should be trying to develop these guys in the roster.
My thing why I like Keenan Allen so much, Justin, is like he played 15 games last year and still had over nearly 750 yards, 744 yards last year with 7 touchdowns. When he plays 2022 with the Chargers, 10 games, 752 yards and 4 touchdowns. Last year in 13 games, 1,200 yards and 7 touchdowns. Like, it's hard to complain about those numbers. Like, he's someone I thought was going to get upwards of $10 million to start free agency, but now still on the market, 1 year, $5 million. I wouldn't hate that at all. I would be a huge fan of that move.
Yeah, I wouldn't hate it. I think the production's a little bit inflated still. Like, I think he's not Amari Cooper washed, but he's definitely on washed watch, if that makes sense. Like, I would not be shocked next year if he falls off big time. It'll just really depend on where he goes, obviously. Like, it's, if he's going to a super crowded wide receiver room, then his numbers are going to fall off. But I think he's still a good player, and he would be an invaluable player to have in that locker room. He's someone who's had a lot of NFL experience and a lot of high-level NFL experience playing he's been a 6-time Pro Bowl or whatever. He's come back from some serious injuries. I like Keenan Allen. I would just be very surprised if there was mutual interest. Like, I would be surprised if the Jets were interested, and I'd be even more surprised if Keenan Allen was interested.
We'll let you go after this one here, Justin, from Chris B, who says Dalton Risner as a guard offensive line depth option piece.
He's still a free agent, huh? He was a free agent well into the summer last year, too, which was wild. I wouldn't hate it again. That's an interior offensive line piece that you could bring in. But I think they're fine. Like, I think their interior is okay as is right now. Josh Myers is an excellent backup center. I was a little surprised that he didn't get a starting job elsewhere. I don't think he's a good starter, but he's someone who started every single year of his career. I don't know if he's ever played in a game where he hasn't started. So you're bringing him in as your backup center, who also has guard flexibility. I like Xavier Newman. I don't know if that's a hot take. I think Xavier Newman is an NFL caliber backup offensive lineman, which, again, not saying a lot because backup caliber offensive linemen in the NFL are bad, but I think he's fine. And then you have both of those guys, and then you're probably only rostering 2 backup interior linemen anyway, because you're probably going to have 2 or 3 backup tackles. So I don't really think there's necessarily room for that. I mean, also maybe Cole Levayo makes some noise or whatever.
He has experience at all 5 positions. That's the thing that I might help. Yeah. Is he still on the roster?
Who? Cole Levayo?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's still there. Cole Levayo's still there. They signed him in the future.
Okay.
He's around. Yes. He's probably center
guard. Maybe the German guy they signed, but I think that's just like the new Obina Eze, where it's the
they did, yeah. They signed 2 undrafted guys. One of them is a super fun one. That's Leander Weigen, who I want to say that name. It's a great name. That's the German dude. He's going to spend most of the year, I imagine, on the practice squad. I don't think he's going to, unless he comes in and is, a Jordan Mailata like transition where it's just holy crap, like this dude is killing.
We need good coaching for that to happen too.
Absolutely. They don't have their Stoutland, but maybe Steve Hyden can be that for the Jets. But he is, if we're going to talk about Weigen for a second, 38 reps on the bench press, which is 3 more than any player at the combine this year, 7 more, I believe, than the highest offensive tackle, which, by the way, was Armand Membu. Also,
Wow.
3 more than Aaron Donald's personal PR. That's how strong this dude is. And also, I was trying to do some Google Translate for some of these interviews that he did. He had said that what he was aiming for was 42 reps, and he said he's done that before. So that's how strong these guys are talking about. Now, can he play football? I have absolutely no idea. But he's really strong, and also was grinding that 2023 European League of Football film, and I was watching him play for the Rhine Fire, or I think it was the Rhine Fire, or Rhine whatever. Play for some
These
team,
names.
and he caught a touchdown pass. So,
oh my God.
I want to say shout out Mike Mitchell, who on the Jet Press, he's the guy who first planted this in my mind. Maybe they're viewing him as a Dan Skipper type, where he can be used as that 6th offensive lineman, and he has some experience. He looks like. Look, I'm just basing it on that one play, right? He looked like he can run. Like he didn't look out of place. It didn't look like if you asked, like, no offense, I'm not going to pick on Mekhi Becton, but if you asked Mekhi Becton to run a route, what it would look like? It probably wouldn't look great. This guy looked like he can move. Like he looked like he could run this route. So I don't know. Maybe they're viewing him as that. That's just a long-term play there. I don't think he's making an impact this year. And then the other guy that they brought in was the Purdue center, Gus Hartwig, I think his name. Gus Hartwig.
Yes.
Very experienced player, Purdue, over 50, or I think around 50 career starts for the Boilermakers. Also a guy who was honorable. I found this just so funny. I feel like I'm the only person who's found this interesting, but he was honorable mention all Big Ten every single year of his career at Purdue. Never first or second team, but he always made honorable mention Big Ten, which
That's
I just
interesting.
was funny.
Consistency.
Yeah, he started all 5 years, experienced player. That's another guy that they probably look to maybe keep around as a long-term backup along the interior of the offensive line. I wouldn't mind a Dalton Reisner. Like he's a good player and he's a good backup offensive lineman for sure. I just don't think the Jets are going to be active in the post-draft free agency market. The only exception I've made, or that I think that they should make a move, and I can see them doing it, would be a Julian Blackmon, who I've talked about.
Yes.
And I talked about him before free agency even started. I think the thing with him is medicals. He played through last year with a torn rotator cuff that he suffered, I believe, in the first game of the year. That moved him from strong safety to free safety because the Colts kind of wanted him to be away from the line of scrimmage, putting his body at risk. They considered shutting him down, and he ultimately made the decision to keep playing. And I thought he played very well. And I think he's a versatile safety who is only, I think, 26 years old. So that very much fits the vibe that they've gone for this offseason with their signings. I think he's out there still because of the medical issues and because I don't know, like I was trying to do research on him and all that I could find was everybody saying, yeah, he's going to have surgery in the offseason. I have not found a single article, tweet, anything saying that he has had that surgery, but I imagine he has. And I'm guessing it's a situation where teams are just waiting to see where he's at in his rehab period. But if he is still out there, come June, hell, man, like that's a signing I would make. That's a guy I'd go after.
Justin, you're the best. Appreciate you sparing some time for us. As always, you got any final thoughts here before we let you go?
No, man, I appreciate you having me on as always. I am excited to watch the New York Jets play football this year. I like a lot of what they've done this offseason, despite some of the the qualms that I might have raised. But I'm happy with the direction of the team. I'm happy with the leadership group that they have in place. And now they just got to put their money where their mouth is. I don't think they're going to make the playoffs this year, but I will stand by a tweet that I put out in, I think, February, which was that the Jets will win more games this year than with Justin Fields as their quarterback than they did with Aaron Rodgers last year as their quarterback. And that's not me saying, oh, Fields is better than Rodgers. That's not the take. I do think the Jets will win more games this year than they did last year. And they only won 5. So the bar is pretty low. I think they can win 6 this year.
Yeah, I think it's just going to be a relaxed year. I feel like last year, on the standing up, every single snap meant so much. Every single move meant so much. Now it's kind of like, all right, we went through all the pain and suffering like we do every year, but extra last season, and now we can just sit back and relax. And if Justin Fields works out, awesome. You got a decision to make if you want to keep him long term or you want to move on. You can get out of it after the contract out of 1 year. And let's say it just goes up in flames. All right, you got a competent backup. You got 2 competent backups behind him. And then you draft your quarterback next year, in which I from what I've heard with that caveat, it's a solid quarterback class. I know that's big because I haven't watched any of these guys. I haven't looked into any numbers. I just know names and I just know what the pundits are saying. So apparently it's a stacked quarterback class next year. And hopefully the Jets get their franchise quarterback one way or another, Justin.
That's for sure, buddy. You'd be surprised if it was worse than this year because this is not a good quarterback class. Outside of Cam Ward, who I do like Cam Ward, and I hope he is succeeding.
Will Howard's my guy.
We'll see, man. We'll see. I know a lot of people are Kyle McCord fans and stuff. I'm a Brady Cook fan now. That's my
Yes, sir. Justin, have a good night, my friend.
Appreciate you, buddy. Take care, Connor.
Ladies and gentlemen, Justin Freed of the Jet Press, kind enough to spare some time. Justin's the best. Give him a follow on Twitter, Justin_T Freed. Read his work, thejetpress.com. Sub to the Jet Press YouTube channel, the Jet Press podcast, every single week. Great way to support Justin, Mike, his whole team at thejetpress.com, and their awesome work. So shout out to Justin. Super nice to give us an hour of his time here on this Friday night. Appreciate you guys, though. Smash the like, hit subscribe. Throw all your questions in the chat. We'll get a little more of those calling the show with the pinned comment. We got new membership raffle prize. We'll do April's membership raffle shortly. But now, guys, please get in on May's membership raffle. Every $2.99 super chat or gifted membership this month gets you an entry with a chance to win a Sauce Gardner signed jersey, a Kevin Mawai signed helmet, an Aaron Glenn signed trading card, a Jonathan Vilma signed photo, a Bart Scott signed photo. Every $2.99 super chat or gifted membership gets you an entry. Please, 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 everyone, get in on this month's membership raffle. No entries yet, so please get in. Every $2.99 super chat or gifted membership does so. Great way to support the show. Smash the like button and hit subscribe. Appreciate you as always. Let's pull up the wheel for April's membership raffle. Let's get this up on here on the screen. And the prizes we are giving away this for April, the prize we're giving away for April that we'll be giving away right now include a CJ Mosley signed jersey, include a Joe Willie Namath Super Bowl III replica ring, a Joe Klecko signed helmet, a Don Maynard signed photo, a free item from our merch store channel emoji. That'll be what we're giving away right now. Let's start off with the Don Maynard. What is it? Here we go. Don Maynard signed photo. This is what we're giving away right here, right now, here on the show. Whoever's name this lands on will earn a Don Maynard signed photo. Let's see who it goes to. Spin is underway. Let's see who won the Don Maynard signed photo. That happens to be our guy Nate. Our buddy Nate will win the Don Maynard signed photo. Let me take note of that here on my. All right, there we go. Let's throw that in here quickly. Nate will win the Don Maynard signed photo, and I don't know what happened to the wheel. Congratulations to Nate. Nate, we appreciate your support as always. If you're watching, email me your info, and I will get that to you. You've won a Don Maynard signed photo. Next up, the Joe Klecko signed mini helmet. Whoever's name this lands on will win a Joe Klecko signed mini helmet. Let's see it, folks. Who will win the Joe Klecko signed mini helmet? It goes to David D, our Lions fan. David wins the Joe Klecko signed mini helmet. Congrats to our guy, David D. David, avid listener of the show, always supporting us. So, David, super happy you could take home the Klecko signed helmet. Next up, the Super Bowl III replica ring. Let's see who this goes to. Super Bowl III replica ring will be going to Jimmy Jets. Jimmy, another avid listener of the show, wins the Super Bowl III replica ring. Jimmy, I have your info, unlike David and Nate, so I will send that out to you right away. Congrats on winning the Super Bowl III replica ring. Now time for the CJ Mosley signed jersey. Whoever's name this lands on will win a CJ Mosley signed jersey. That is David D again. David D comes away with 2 prizes in this month's membership raffle. He wins the CJ Mosley signed jersey and the Joe Klecko signed mini helmet. Shout out to our guy David. Appreciate his support as always. Now for the free item from our merch store. Whoever's name this lands on will win a free item from our merch store. That is Dick Chimney's Burner. Dick Chimney's Burner. You will win a free item from our merch store. Hit me up and we will get that to you. All right. Now, lastly, a channel emoji for the members customized of your choice. Whoever's name this lands on will win that. And the channel emoji goes to Jake Asman. Shout out to our guy Jake for winning the channel emoji. We do already have a Jake Asman channel emoji, but I will hit Jake up and I will see what we want the updated Jake Asman channel emoji to be. So shout out to Jake for winning the prizes. Thank you everyone who entered in April's membership raffle. Appreciate you guys as always. This will be the membership raffle will be keeping up this month. The prize is again Sauce Gardner signed jersey, Kevin Mawai signed helmet, Darren Glenn signed trading card, Jonathan Vilma signed photo, Bart Scott signed photo, free item from the merch store, and a channel emoji. Every $2.99 super chat or gifted membership gets you an entry. Please get in on that for this month. Those were April's raffle prizes. Hit me up if you're in the chat. Shoot me your email, and shoot me your info in the email, and we will get that out to you. Appreciate you guys as always. Thank you so much for sparing some time and joining us here on this Friday evening. Back tomorrow night, 9:30 p.m. EST with our guy Chris Grasso. Some next gen Jets action. Appreciate you all as always. Like I said, shout out to our guy Justin Freed from the Jet Press. Joined us for the first hour of the show. Justin's the best. Follow his work, thejetpress.com. Like Justin, you guys are the best as well. Smash the like button, hit subscribe. That'll do it for me here on this Friday evening, guys. I'm your host, Connor Long, signing off here on NY Flight Jets Talk. Have a great night. And as always, JTS, Jets, 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 baby. Peace out.